Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to be exploring the incredible intersection of biological reality, animal consciousness, and human psychology, looking at how the natural world actually mirrors our deepest drives. And to kick things off, I want to start with a number that is going to completely shatter your assumptions about invertebrate intelligence.
73%. Now, that's not just some random statistic. That is the actual astonishing success rate of octopuses correctly using a mirror to find hidden food in a recent Dartmouth College study. I mean, just think about that for a second. We're talking about an animal without a backbone, living underwater, actively using a reflection to locate something it literally cannot see directly. It's wild.
Moving into Section 1, Minds Beneath the Waves, Intelligence in the Deep. For the longest time, we've really put human intelligence on this unreachable pedestal, right? But as we'll see, the ocean's depths are quickly proving us wrong.
So back in that Dartmouth lab, researchers tested California two-spot octopuses by placing a food reward in a spot where it could only be seen through a mirror. And get this, the octopuses didn't just attack the reflection like you might expect. They actually used the mirror to navigate around a corner to find the actual hidden food. This clearly shows us they possess internal spatial maps and some seriously advanced cognition. And what makes this truly mind-bending is that our last common ancestor with the octopus was literally a worm that lived up to 500 million years ago. Seriously, a worm. It's a textbook example of convergent evolution, where two completely different branches on the tree of life managed to develop surprisingly similar, highly complex neural solutions just to survive.
And this kind of complexity extends way beyond just octopuses. Take a look at this quote from Evan Burns in the Journal of Fish Biology. Researchers studying Port Jackson sharks found that individual juvenile sharks actually exhibit distinct personalities. Some are consistently bolder, while others show measurably different reactions to handling stress. So they really aren't just the mindless eating machines pop culture makes them out to be. Each shark interacts with its environment in its own unique way, which forces us to realize the ocean is actually full of distinct individual characters.
Let's go to Section 2, Altruism or Anthropomorphism, Interpreting Animal Actions. Now, the crucial point here is this. When we see animals exhibiting these incredibly complex, highly individualized behaviors, are they actually acting with conscious intention, or are we simply projecting our own human feelings onto them?
To really explore that question, consider this unbelievable sequence of events from back in 2017. Out in the Cook Islands, marine biologist Nan Hauser was literally pushed through the water by a wild humpback whale for over 7 minutes. Now, initially she was understandably confused and pretty terrified, but then she suddenly spotted a massive 18-foot tiger shark nearby, and it was in full attack mode. The whale actually positioned Hauser on his head and actively transported her away from the shark, safely returning her to her research boat.
Now, as completely astonishing as that sounds, there is actually a scientific framework for it. It's called interspecific altruism, which is basically what happens when an animal steps in to protect a totally different species from a predator attack. In fact, a paper in the journal Marine Mammal Science documented this exact kind of phenomenon, noting numerous instances where humpback whales would actually mob killer whales, specifically to protect seals and other marine mammals from being hunted.
But here is exactly where we have to be really careful. It is so incredibly tempting to lean into anthropomorphism here, to view that humpback whale as this compassionate hero acting out of pure empathy. But researchers remind us that in nature, evolutionary self-interest is the much more likely driver. This protective mobbing behavior probably evolved simply so humpbacks could protect their own calves from predators to ensure species survival. So when they protect a seal, or even a human, it might actually just be an evolutionary reflex misfiring, rather than some conscious moral choice.
Okay, moving on to Section 3, Creating Emotional Ecology, From Science to Story. Let's look at how this debate builds into an entirely new way of communicating science. I mean, how do we take these potentially dry evolutionary facts and make people actually care about them? Well, that brings us right to the Sea Change Project.
The Sea Change Project champions a really powerful concept known as emotional ecology. The core philosophy here is simple but extremely profound. Facts alone just do not change human behavior, but awe does. By taking raw biological data from places like the Great African Sea Forest and translating it into a deep emotional narrative, they believe we can rebuild that broken connection between humans and the wild. Next up is Section 4, Documenting Biological Realities, Translating Nature to Film.
Probably the most powerful tool we have right now for translating those complex ecological truths into genuine awe is documentary filmmaking. So let's explore how filmmakers are effectively bridging that gap between hard science and human psychology.
We're going to look at 3 distinct documentaries that excel at this exact kind of translation. Whether they are exploring fungal networks, the biology of human reproduction, or the life cycle of cephalopods, each of these films grounds itself in strict biological reality while managing to connect to a core human emotion, things like interconnectedness, the drive to create life, and the profound impact of bonding.
Take the film Fantastic Fungi, for instance. It takes the incredibly complex, invisible biology of mycelial networks and makes it spectacularly visible. By using this absolutely stunning time-lapse cinematography, the filmmakers transform the ecological role of mushrooms into a visually dazzling narrative. It really drives home how all life on Earth is deeply interconnected and interdependent.
Shifting gears from the forest floor to human biology, the documentary Seahorse offers a deeply moving look at that very biological drive to multiply. The film follows Freddie McConnell, a trans man, navigating the extraordinary medical and natural realities of male pregnancy, which is a phenomenon that actually perfectly echoes the natural reproduction cycle of the marine seahorse. It takes this highly unique biological journey and seamlessly connects it to the universal, hardwired human impulse to create life.
And then, combining the wild ocean with deep human emotion, we have the Oscar-winning documentary My Octopus Teacher. Filmmaker Craig Foster spent an entire year free-diving in a freezing South African kelp forest, eventually forging this incredibly intimate daily bond with a wild common octopus. He literally watched her creatively evade pajama shark attacks, survive the loss of an arm through regeneration, and eventually die naturally after tending her eggs. So it's this raw biological timeline, but emotionally, it becomes an absolute masterclass in the fragility of life, a lesson Foster was then able to transfer directly to a deeper bond with his own son.
Which brings us to Section 5, the psychological reflection, what nature teaches us about ourselves. Let's take a minute to analyze this specific interspecies bond through a psychological lens, drawing on some really fascinating insights from the Library of Professional Psychology. What actually happens to the human mind when it immerses itself so completely into the wild?
Well, normally, psychological growth or therapy happens in a safe, controlled sort of container, like a therapist's office. But Foster and the octopus met in what psychologists called troubled water. There is no safe container in the ocean to manage your anxiety. The crashing currents, the freezing temperatures, the lurking predators, all of these elements force a completely uncontained, utterly genuine encounter that strips away all our usual human defenses.
And the psychological dynamics at play here are just incredibly rich. We see transference in full effect as Foster forms a truly profound attachment to this invertebrate. But we also have to question the role of narcissism. Was this journey really about the octopus, or was it maybe a preoccupation with Foster's own evolving sense of self and personal growth? But honestly, the most fascinating part is the concept of character armor, which was coined by psychologist Wilhelm Reich. Just as humans build invisible emotional armor to protect our psyches from trauma, we literally watch the octopus gather physical shells and stones to armor herself against shark attacks. The biology is perfectly mirroring the psychology.
Yet we also have to acknowledge the unseen observer. We watched this highly intimate bond unfold, but there was an unidentified photographer in the water recording it the entire time. And this just reminds us of a really fundamental truth in both science and psychology. The observer always influences the system. You simply cannot frame a narrative without inevitably being a part of it. No one, not even the storyteller, truly lives outside of the ecosystem.
Which brings us to the end of this explainer. From octopuses using mirrors, to sharks with distinct personalities, to humans seeking psychological healing and freezing kelp forests, the line between animal intelligence and human emotion really is remarkably thin. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When we hold a mirror up deeply to the natural world, are we finally discovering their consciousness, or are we just confronting our own? Keep wondering, keep exploring, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.